You look at the indictments that have come down over the last few years. You've had Bill Cosby, you have had R. Kelly, you have had now Puffy. It is like they've indicted the 90s. And a phenomenon that seems to always happen, or all too often happen, is when these indictments come down to these people who are beloved in our communities, these people who are, legends in our community. There's almost a nonsensical rush to make sense out of something that doesn't. And I think it's because we hold them higher standard because of the way they made us feel. I think that is how bad we as a people generally needs to be feel. We hold these people up. Like it wasn't Cliff Huxtable that was accused. It was Bill Cosby. But we conflate the two. It isn't the people that sing the songs that are doing it. It's the artists. Case in point, what has happened with Puffy. I've heard any number of people. One guy in particular, who I'm not going to say, he went on and on and on about how this was a setup because of his business dealings with the liquor company Diageo, and how he was getting too big for his britches, and how this is a scheme to bring down the black man. And you know what? I am going to take this gentleman at his word. Maybe he is privy to information that only those in the inner circle or inner workings of Puffy's empire would know about. I do find it odd that he would know that much, and instead of telling it to us, he's not telling it to a prosecutor. But I'll take you at your word. Maybe you do have insight as to what happened. Maybe you do have insight as to the inner workings and how these things got weaponized against him. Maybe you do. And I'm going to take you at the word. Maybe you're earnest when you make these accusations, when you say these things. Maybe they did set him up because he was getting too high on the horse. Maybe they did have all these people testify against him. Maybe they did ship vats of baby oil and dildos and KY jelly. Maybe they did scrape the serial numbers off of AK-47. Maybe they did all of that in an attempt to, as you say, bring him down. Maybe they did. I'm going to take you at your word because I think that you're earnestly saying what you think you believe, what you believe. Maybe they did all of those things. Maybe, as you say, and we all know that there can be conspiratorial aspects that are leveled at black man. That is true. So maybe this person knows something. He's telling us in an earnest way. He is laying out the unvarnished truth. And maybe if we took it seriously, this wouldn't be happening. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to say that you are probably telling the truth from your perspective. You probably are. And maybe it all makes sense to you. Maybe the setup makes sense to you. Maybe all that happened makes sense to you. All the allegations, the hours and hours and hours of investigation, the years of investigation, the multi-page indictment. Because it's funny to me that there's the very same people who say these kinds of things. They don't believe a multi-page indictment against a celebrity they love, but they'll believe a lie on the internet about somebody they don't want to vote for, which seems confusing to me. But I will take you at your word. You seem to be an earnest man who's only concerned about what is the things that are done right. So maybe all these things happen. Maybe the conspiracy is true. And I only have one question. Which one of those conspirators beat the shit out of Cassie in that hallway? Which one of them? Which one of his business dealings? Which one of those people he was in business with? Which one of those people who were trying to bring him down beat that girl and kicked that girl and dragged her by her hair? So if that is your stance and all those other things are true and they did all those things, we need to get the dude who brutally beat the shit out of that woman in plain sight. That's a little note from the GED section. Got a jazz report coming up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.
And most pointedly, for you low vibration Negroes, let me be very clear. He is not being charged with domestic violence against any woman. He is not being charged with a federal crime for stomping out Mrs. Casey Ventura. And I'm sorry that happened to that young lady. No woman should ever suffer that type of abuse at the hands of a man. His major sex crime in the federal case is not the freak-offs. It's not beating on women. The sex crime against Puff Daddy in the federal case is the transport of women across state lines for sex. Let me say it again. It is not domestic violence. It is not pedophilia. I'm going to say it again. Sean Puffy Combs' federal charges have little, if anything, to do with domestic abuse or pedophilia. His major sex crime federally is he's being accused of transporting women across state lines to engage in sex. What we call prostitution. Not Casey, not the freak-offs, not underage girls, but prostitution. Why am I bringing this up? Because I don't support prostitution either. I do not support men paying for the sugar box. I do not support black women having to sexually exploit their sugar box in order to pay their bills. With that being said, prostitution is the oldest female business on the planet Earth. Prostitution is the oldest female business on the planet Earth. Prostitution is the oldest female business on the planet Earth. It is the sexual trafficking that Sean Puffy Combs is being accused of. Not domestic abuse, not freak-offs, not stomping out Cassie, not engaging in sex with underage women. It is interstate sexual trafficking. That is the charge. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up, peace God, because when I listen to the news, they're not talking about the evidence against Sean Puffy Combs. When I listen to the news, they're not talking about the evidence of Sean Puffy Combs. When I listen to the news, I have yet to hear anybody give me a specific piece of interstate sex trafficking evidence against Sean Puffy Combs. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it for the low political IQ Negroes. I'm going to say it for the average political IQ Negroes. And I'm going to say it for the high IQ Negroes. I haven't seen or heard a single piece of evidence against Sean Puffy Combs. I ain't read it in the New York Times. I ain't read it in the Philadelphia Inquirer. I ain't heard it on CNN. I ain't seen it on headline news. Where is the evidence that Sean Puffy Combs engaged in interstate sex trafficking? I keep hearing about Cassie when I turn on the news. Why are we hearing about Cassie when Cassie has nothing to do with the federal indictment? I don't think any black man should have 1,000 bottles of baby oil. I don't think any black man needs 1,000 bottles of baby oil. But I haven't seen anywhere in federal law where owning 1,000 bottles of baby oil is a federal crime. Brothers and sisters, are you with me so far? Brothers and sisters, are you with me so far? Do you understand, overstand, and understand what the most requested black scholar in the world is saying right now? Do you understand and overstand and understand what the most requested black scholar in the world is saying right now? Do you understand, overstand, and understand what the premier Pan-Africanist on the planet is saying to you right now? Baby oil is not a federal crime. Stomping out Cassie, he was not charged with a crime. The freak-offs are not crimes. So why do we keep hearing about Cassie? Why do we keep hearing about baby oil? Why do we keep hearing about freak-offs? Where are the federal charges, and why are the charges being sealed? Why did the feds seal the charges against Sean Puffy Combs? I'm going to tell you one reason why the feds sealed the charges against Sean Puffy Combs. One of the biggest reasons they sealed the charges against Sean Puffy Combs is because the evidence is probably weak. The evidence is probably weak. And because the evidence is probably weak that he is guilty of interstate sex trafficking, and because the evidence is probably weak that he is guilty of interstate sex trafficking, they had to seal the charges. They had to hide the charges from you and I. They had to hide the charges from you and I long enough for the public execution to be carried out. Are y'all listening to me right now? For all my political scientists, I need y'all to listen to me. Most black people are too emotional to engage in a rational, logical argument about this situation. Most black people are too emotionally immature and politically uneducated to engage in a rational conversation about this topic. So I am only talking to Africans with a high EQ and a high PIQ. Only if you have a high emotional IQ and a high political IQ, I'm talking to you. The emotionally uncontrolled and undisciplined Democratic and Republican Party plantation slaves, this is not for you. My feminists, this is not for you. Beta males, this is not for you. Why is it that the charges are not being disclosed? Because they need Sean Puffy Combs like Bill Cosby, like R. Kelly, and R. Kelly very well may have been guilty. But we know R. Kelly is not in jail for sex crimes. R. Kelly is in jail because he didn't want to sell his publishing and his masters to a certain company. And Bill Cosby went to jail because he didn't want to let the oil company drill under his house in Massachusetts. One thing is for certain, two things is for sure. Sean Puffy Combs is not in jail for sex crimes. He may be guilty of sex crimes, but he's not in jail for sex crimes. He may be guilty of sex crimes, but he's not in jail for sex crimes. The reason the charges are sealed is they are weak, but they still need Puffy's reputation to be completely destroyed. So even if he beats the charges, nobody will ever allow him on a respectable platform again. This is a public media execution of another blackmail mogul. I don't care how you feel about him personally. I don't care how you feel about him emotionally. I don't care how you feel about him privately. The reason I'm speaking up, out and against the lynching of Sean Puffy Combs, the reason I'm speaking up, out and against the public execution of Sean Puffy Combs isn't because of Sean Puffy Combs. I don't know that man. I've never met that man. I can't say anything about that man. But I do know there's about 20 million black men in America. I do know that. I do know there's about 20 million black men in America who can't afford the lawyers that Puffy can afford, who can't afford the publicists that Puffy can afford, who can't afford the legal defense that Puffy can afford. So I'm not speaking out for Sean Puffy Combs per se. I'm speaking out for all black men, because any black man can be unfairly charged and unfairly executed in both the public court and the legal court.